Hello and welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Show. I am your host, Jay Jones. Black Entrepreneur Blueprint was created specifically to educate and inspire Black entrepreneurs to launch, build, and grow successful businesses. Join us as we help build an economic power base in the Black community by promoting business ownership. If you are currently an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, we invite you to join us every week here at Black Entrepreneur Blueprint.
Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, episode number 339. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and today we have a dynamic show in store for you, family. We got a good one today. Today we're going to be speaking with Mr. Michael Render, aka Killer Mike, songwriter, rapper, activist, and entrepreneur. And today's show is going to be a little bit different from the ones that you're probably used to seeing Killer Mike on. We're going to talk about Killer Mike's upbringing and what made or helped create him to become the activist and entrepreneur that he is. Now, before we get to today's show, I just want to share a few things with the BEB family. First and foremost, I want to welcome all first-time listeners or watchers to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Welcome to the BEB family. Please stick around until the end of today's broadcast, and I'm going to share all my social media contact information and my resource links, such as the link to my new book, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses. Also, I've created two platforms to help stimulate and circulate dollars in the Black community, BeSmartByBlack.com and HireBlackFreelancers.com. Also, if you're interested in learning how to build a platform for your business to help generate and create sales and revenues in a predictable fashion, I'm doing a live training on Wednesday, January 13th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's called MillionDollarNewsletter.com. You can go to MillionDollarNewsletter.com, find out all the information, and if it's for you, just enroll, and I'm looking forward to seeing you. But a platform is necessary if you're trying to build a business. Most people don't have a platform, and all they focus on initially is creating their product or service, and then when it's time to sell the product or service, they don't have anybody to sell it to. So building a platform is paramount for a successful business, and one of the easiest ways to build a platform is with a digital newsletter. Now, let's get ready for today's show. Here's a short little clip behind the scenes when I asked Mike, why am I so low on the totem pole when I signed up for Greenwood Bank? Check it out. Yo, man, why am I number 19,000 on the waiting list, man? What's up, man?
Now, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's a good thing. Now, my cousins hit me like that for real, though. Don't think I ain't from the country. Hold on, I'm still with you. The camera's just blanking for a second. No, okay. Yeah. I'm still from the country, so I got them calls like, hey, cuz I'm at 10,000. How I can get up to the top 10? And I was like, be first. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I promise you, you qualify, you get your account, though, cuz I'm going to make sure.
Because I went up there. I'm like, damn, I'm way down in there, man. But that's beautiful though, bro. So
yeah, up to over 200,000 on the wait list now. And the list I think opens in January. So damn. I'm very excited.
Good, bro. Man, any questions before we get rocking, man?
Nah, man, I'm with you. Let's hopefully have a great conversation.
We are live with none other than Michael Render, aka Killer Mike. Killer Mike, how are you today, brother?
I'm good. I have no complaints, man. Good to be with you, brother.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you spending time with Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, man. We want to talk about a couple of things today, but before we get into Greenwood Bank, Black economics, activism, and all that, tell the people who aren't familiar with you, and I know that's not many, a little bit about you, the person, aka Killer Mike, man. Where you from? How you got?
Yeah, well, I'm one of the founders of Greenwood Bank. My name is Michael Render, and professionally I sing and dance for a living, and I'm called Killer Mike. So usually if I'm somewhere being called Killer Mike, I'm singing and dancing, and I appreciate you calling me Michael Render, because that's what all the people who loved me when I was growing up called me Michael. And I'm an artist, but I've taken finance seriously. It does not mean I've mastered finance. Doesn't mean I'm not still an artist learning. It means that I've decided at a point in my life to say, if I'm only singing and dancing, how long before singing and dancing is strictly about $1 and not about the love anymore? So what I found was I married, fortunately, the granddaughter of the lady who had a liquor house. I married a woman named Shay. And Shay and I are entrepreneurs. And I say Shay and I because it takes a partnership with me. I'm good at kind of spotting a good idea. And I'm good at singing and dancing. And I'm good at singing and I'm good at singing and dancing, and people want to pay me a lot of money for that. But that doesn't mean you know what to do with your money. Sometimes you just put it on a shelf and let it sit, and it deteriorates, by natural occurrence or because the IRS chops your head off. Or you can start to figure out ways to make your money work for you. And I stumbled into entrepreneurship early, cutting grass as a kid. I continued entrepreneurship in some of the ways that kids in the 80s and 90s did. I would never suggest those ways of entrepreneurship for anyone, but all those things prepared me to recognize, and my partner, my life partner, my best friend, my wife, I have a partner with a strong business mind and acumen. And what I am is a product of good parenting from grandparents who raised me, because my parents were teenagers. I'm a product of a city where I saw Black entrepreneurship help. I grew up in the same neighborhood as Herman Russell, who was once the largest Black real estate developer in the region, if not the nation. And he was in the big houses in the middle of the neighborhood, and I was in these working class A-frames that surround the neighborhood that his company and other companies had built. But I learned that anything is possible. The schools I went to were better because rich Blacks lived right there with us in this mixed Black income community. The expectations were higher. So I got an opportunity to understand that money affected me. And my grandparents were devout savers. My grandparents never sold my grandpa's house. They lived in the house my grandma bought. They rented out my grandpa's house. We went on vacations because of that. So we learned, one of my sisters grew up, graduated Dillard, became an accountant. So I'm a typical Black kid from Atlanta, given the opportunity. And when given the opportunity, I try to do things with my money that'll go. So I go into real estate. I co-own a restaurant called Bankhead Seafood. That's a 50-year-old legacy restaurant with T.I. And like I said, I'm one of the co-founders of Greenwood. That's who Michael Render, Killer Mike is.
That's what's up, man. I wanted to ask you something because you pointed out something about your partner, right? So your wife. Now it's funny. Yeah. I talk about this on the podcast all the time because your partner has to be equally yoked, right? Not just in marriage, but in business too. So when my wife and I got married, one of the things that my wife had to understand after I left corporate America, I've been a serial entrepreneur for 20 plus years, but my wife and her family have been in education. And so, as a teacher now, as a principal, those are type of positions that you'll never get fired from unless you just do something real crazy, right? So that's very stable. So when I left corporate America and went out on my own, how sometimes the income.
And the mountains and the valleys.
And we used to, my wife was like, look, what's going on? I said, look, babe, if multi-billion-dollar companies can go out of business, so can J. Jones, right? But it's all a process. Talk to me real quick about having an equally yoked partner, wife, spouse, partner, whoever, when you're in business.
I'm glad that you described your wife and your situation like that, Jay. Because equally yoked, I think a lot of times in taking other cultural groups in this country, we perceive equally yoked to be how they define it. That means if the husband makes $30,000 a year or $90,000 a year, the wife must make $90,000 a year, or they're not equal because their money is. And that's not what I saw growing up. So what I saw growing up was a woman who was learned and educated, and my grandmother who was a nurse, and my grandfather who was not formally educated past the third grade. Was a serial deal cutter and hustler. Like he drove for Chattahoochee Brick, a company that had built their fortune off the backs of rented convict labor and slavery. He worked for them. And on the weekends, he may take their dump truck and do some extra work in a few other places. And he may drive a dump truck. So you make it work for you. So they were they were your typical Southern couple where the Black woman, as in today, graduated college more, had a formal education. They weren't even as equally as yoked as you know, you in corporate America, your wife. They were balanced. My grandmother, at some point when the crack era started to explode, my grandfather said, I want you here when these children leave and come from school. So I don't want you working in the daytime anymore. And my grandmother did not lean on the fact that she was more educated, did not lean on the fact on paper, she might even made more money some years. She leaned on the fact that that was the right and balanced thing to do for us, the kids. Now, time we got in rhythm, she went and got her job for 4 hours in the middle of the day to do like delivering mail or Sunday. Seriously, she was like, I can't just sit home and watch soap operas. Right. And I cut my grass 3 times a day. So she needed to be working. So that was, you know, being a nurse, one of them jobs, like unless you mess up horribly, it's always going to be there for you. So there was those years that I started to understand, oh, this thing is about balance, because we went to our parents' house, like both of them would go to work and we just be sitting there like with our aunt, like, this is lame, you know what I'm saying? So my wife and I are equally yoked in that we understand our strengths and weaknesses, and she does not have to follow my lead on everything. There are lots and more times than I'm following her lead because I'll have a great idea, and then she says, well, this is structurally what it could, what it should look like. And we understand the power of not only balancing the strengths and weaknesses, but the power of having the right people and team around you. So I've learned a lot being equally yoked with this woman. You know, sometimes she's kind of drugged me along. The yoke, she was a little more further advanced. For people who've known anything about a farm life for real, you got to get two bulls that'll cooperate to pull you. So it really is balance and cooperation, man. And thank you for sharing your wife's story. Because my wife carried me for a couple of years. Like, I walked away from $120,000 and we're going to give you a Challenger, you know, a typical Negro deal. It was a lot of money, you know, it was a nice car at the time. Right. But, you know, there's a lawyer who I use who's a friend now. He says, man, you know, I thought you were crazy when you walked away from that deal, the money, the car. I said, I'll get that about per show now. Right. And I buy any car I want. So, you know, and he always laughs like, you knew. I was like, yeah, I always knew. Because my wife had said, I'm going to work this year and a half, press up your mixtape, your underground album, and hit the chitlin circuit. And you hit in Columbus, Georgia, Valdosta. Your wife saying, I got to make sure at base level is taken care of. And I remember even just putting my royalties in her, with her and her company. Like, I owe you this back anyway. So it's been a pleasurable ride with her because she believed even when I didn't believe. And I can remember coming to her just saying, you know, I don't want you to work for corporate America anymore. I don't want you supervise and lead, and I don't want you growing their profits. I want you to come do it for us. And she took the risk and did that. And that's when we had to become real business partners. And I believe helped our marriage be even stronger. You know what I mean? But equally yoked for people on the other side of here, understand that ultimately is about balance. Please don't create those scenarios where you're competing with one another in a household that's poisonous and it's toxic. If my wife comes in tomorrow and says, man, I got a $2 million deal, I'm going to be like, shit, what's up, officer? Call me Stant, man. Like, because I'm proud of her when she does it. I don't have to make 3 to be the lead. You know, like we heard a big crash a minute ago. And she said, did you hear that? I was like, no, the dog's barking though. I said, what you about to do? She said, I'm about to sit here like a woman is supposed to with my gun. And I expect you to go out with yours and see what that disturbance is about. So
that's what's up. That's beautiful.
It makes a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful, bro. Because it's funny sometimes, and you hit it on the head. If the dynamic of the relationship is where if the wife makes more money than the husband or whatever, sometimes if you're not a confident man, confident in yourself and your position, that can be an issue. You know what I mean? So once again, but if you're working as a true team, like you said, if your wife comes in with a $2 million deal, that's for the team. You know,
straight up.
If you come in with 0, that's all good because I got something over here, and that's important, man. Brother, you got a lot of iterations, man. You music and artist, you're a director, you've been in movies, all kinds of stuff, man. How did you get started in activism?
Oh man, I voluntarily at about 14, 15 years old. Cool. But my grandmother has been like if she was polling for a politician, we were with the politician. You know, if she went to a city council meeting, we went to a city council. So it was this, this beautiful, thick-haired black woman with one swoop of gray going down the middle, and this little black chubby kid with her, like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, we're at the Department of Sewer and Sanitation. She's making a complaint, and she's like, you deal with the city and city council people, and she tell, I brought him here so he could see, and
right.
So all along, I'm just absorbing. I'm a student. My grandfather, we go fishing, and he didn't know at the time. He's really espousing some of the same thing that people who consider themselves, say, libertarian, that are strict constitutionalists. Like, right. My grandfather is giving me these views in terms of, I'm 8. I don't understand why are you tripping about paying, I think that was $2.50 or $3 for a fishing license. Right. You know what I'm saying? He's like, God gave you an appetite and the will to make a tool to eat. You eat. So you shouldn't have to have a government. And so I'm taking this with my grandmother, who's very pro-democracy and works with specific candidates, but philosophically, my grandfather is like very just, if the Constitution promised you this, get it. Right. and accept nothing else, nothing less than the white people would. So I'm in between these worlds. So about 14, 15 years old, of course, like I said, I grew up during the explosion of crack in this country, and it decimated our communities. There starts to be self-organizing groups. So children in Atlanta, and if you grew up in the city of Atlanta, growing up in the city of Atlanta, you grew up in an atmosphere in the early and mid 80s of the Atlanta missing, murdered, and children. Right. So, you grew up in a very fear-induced environment. And what clicking up with, whether it was street gangs or trapping together, at that time they call it rolling. Right. And whether you were doing these things, you tried to be in groups. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So the same groups that I would be in school with, me and the homies fighting the other neighborhood cliques, or, going out to do whatever to get some money. A lot of the boys started pivoting into more positive pathways. You had people like, Reverend Love, Albert E. Love over in Boat Rock doing work. You had people working directly with Crips and Gangster Disciples on the ground who had organized with King, you know what I'm saying? And these people just poured in us, and I got addicted to helping my community. Like, I don't even care if we was fighting with your project on Friday in school. If it was Saturday about doing tutorial and the kids from your neighborhood needed, then we was gonna do it because it was love. I might not like your big brother, but I'm gonna make sure you get into our school and you make our school proud. So I joined an organization called Black Teens for Advancement that was headed by Mr. Johnson, who was a history teacher from my rival school. Oh, wow. And sometimes you go into his school like, man, please don't let these fools jump on me today, because I'm a you know what I mean? Right. But the organization was started by the older boys, because they were like, you guys are getting a little too violent in terms of weapons. And it got us all on the table. We started talking about our problems. And then we started saying, well, how can we help the wider community? Right. That led me into organizing with the Atlanta Fulton Commission on Children and Youth through a group called Kids for a Change that was comprised of everything from the daughters of Fulton County prosecutors to hardened street gang members, but we were self-organized as children. So it's about 15 years old. So it's about 30 years of some type of organizing, advocacy, or mobilizing I've been in. So a lot of times when, people go back and forth with me online, it's hilarious, because I'm like, you got politicized 13 months ago. Way to go. That's right.
Right. And you've been in the game for a minute.
Yeah, and not for the praise and accolades, but my grandparents taught me that it is your responsibility to do this. Right. This podcast is as important as any podcast I'm doing today, because on the other side of it is a Black man building a legacy. We're both providing an example for people who look like us. So I take that seriously. I'm not just a rapper out here rapping. So I appreciate the political people in the political world, like Senator Nina Turner, whether it's Sanders, people, Keisha Lance Bottoms on the ground, that understand that they're dealing with a serious guy, and I'm treated as such. So I'm here for my community till I'm out of here,
I appreciate that, man. Most definitely. Brother, you had mentioned something about the pull. The streets were out there, things were going on. How did you navigate all of that? Because there's a thing where I call it the point of enlightenment. So sometimes people do things because they feel that's the only way out. So my stepbrother, for example, he did like a 12-year bid, right?
Yeah.
He was out there doing this thing, even though he knew he shouldn't have been doing it, but he just saw that, you know what, I'm making this money. It's not that hard until you get caught. And
Yeah.
how did you navigate all of that, man? And, you know, to be the person who you are.
I just tell people, watch the movie Fresh.
Okay.
If you haven't watched the movie Fresh,
Mm-hmm.
we watch Scarface and New Jack City and watched Fresh, and that's what it was like being a kid. Not to that extreme, but you had to think. You know what I mean? You had to think. So for me, my mother was more like my big sister, and she never hid. Everything was pretty transparent.
Okay.
You know, with her. So, you know, it wasn't a matter of what's going on. I knew what was going on.
Right.
And she talked to me as though I knew. You know what I mean? My mother's the person, you know, who said to me, "No, you don't take no fronts from no niggas. Don't make a motherfucker let you prostitute you." Exactly. And which, you know, so she knew that at some point your little dumb ass gonna decide to make a dumb decision. But what you're not going to do is be used by people. And I can remember when they would use us as lookouts. So before there was a trap. The trap was where that everyone was, it was Front Street. So you'd meet somebody at a car wash, they popped their trunk. They literally got ounces, half a broken down. It was like it was like a market. You know what I'm saying?
Open air market, huh?
Yeah. And so if you were younger, you would get paid to look out. You know, they pay you. Sit out there. If you saw the police, at first they used to say 99. That was too long. They say 12. You know, and you say 12 because it was off the TV. There used to be a TV show called Adam 12.
Adam 12. Yeah.
So the term 12 is a shortened version of 12. You see, 12. So, and then, you know, if you did a decent job, they might throw you something, you know, 40, 50 bucks. Some people was organized. Like if one dude had apartments and stuff, he'd pay everybody, you know, 50 bucks. And then, you know, the next level up with the older boys, you get fronted. Like, so you get what they call a bomb, a $500 bomb, a $1,000 bomb, and, you know, and you get, you know, they pay the boys 25 cents, 27 cents off a dollar. So really, they selling an ounce, they getting paid a quarter, the equivalent of what would be. And then you had some younger boys that wanted to get out the porch a little longer. They wanted to do the same thing, but their prices was different. It was like they was getting 130, you know, like 13, 15 cents. So you guys like, well, he's 17.
Right.
Why he get, you know what I'm saying? Like, we doing the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, why he get, like, you know, but you know, they chump. And I can remember being one of my friends like, hey man, like he paid the older boys. It's like, why would you know, one of my partners who was, you know, taking fronts, and you know, so I'm like, shit, I'm not in the apartment. It's like I might as well make some money. Like, you know what I mean? It was, you know, it's not, a lot of times it's not the only thing to do. It's the easy thing to do. And we gotta start being honest about that. Even at 13, I just knew it was fucking easy. Like I live in the working class section. So it ain't junkies going up and down my street, but with my cousins, I'm in apartments. It might be 15 older people that ask us for drugs on the walk to the store and back. Right. And by the third walk, I'm like, oh man, I know how to do this. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like I know y'all, but you gotta trust me. So I told my boy, I said, get him, tell him, you know, I said, I'm gonna talk to him. I remember talking to the older guy, like, hey, you pay the older boys, why don't you just pay us this? And we won't tell nobody else. Like, I don't even live. I ain't even my apartment. Yeah. And he said, man, basically, like, y'all little niggas can take this shit or not. Right. You know, but I'm not finna. So I'm like, well, at least give us $1,000 bomb piece. That way we can at least make a couple $100 because we want to. Right. And he thought that the greed was the little kid saying he wanted to make over $200 too. So I can just give him 2 packs work. I was thinking this nigga never gonna see me again. Because my mama said you pimping me anyway. And by the time I saw him again, I was an adult. And he just shook his head and laughed. Yeah. Say, nigga, you know, he saw one of my buddies, you know. What? And he told my buddy, tell Skunk, I said, what up? So I've always, you know, even in that era, I knew it wasn't right, but I knew it was easy and available. So there were times in high school where I know 3-4 boys that are buying something. I said, you should put your money together. And I called my uncle to meet us at the. So I always had a mind for putting things together. Yeah, but what I was not was a believer that was going to take me the long way. My mother had been a major cocaine trafficker. So, you know, my mother at 15, I remember waking up like a week or 2 before my 15th birthday, and a woman getting picked up in Griffin, Georgia for attempting to buy 10 kilos of cocaine.
Oh,
You know,
man.
and like my mom said, she said them crackers was a goddamn lie. We was going to buy 20. They kept half the money.
Wow.
You know what I'm
Isn't
saying?
that
So
crazy?
like she didn't, you know, we lived with our grandparents, so we had the stability and an Americana of a Gordon Parks picture of a black
Right.
woman and child at Woolworths, you know. But my mother's life, she lived in a suburb, much nicer homes. It was a party house of sorts. She was an artist by trade, but you know, my mother's friends were fucking everybody from drug dealers to party promoters, and it was
Right.
her, you know. So she was just very frank and adamant with me. So I never believed that took anybody all the way. My thing was, I wanted easy money, and I was 14, I could figure it out. But I got a job. When I see my buddy get some Jordans, I went and got a job, you know.
Yeah.
And
Well,
having a job taught me a lot too. So you know.
well, you mentioned something, man, and it's real true, man. It's either you pimp or get pimped, right?
Yeah.
And so
And, you know, there are gray areas in between.
Yeah, there are gray areas in
a rudimentary way. That's what the game comes down to, you know, especially on that side.
Because you know, as a, you know, and I'm not knocking, you know, people that work in corporate America. I did it for 6 years after college. But the crazy thing is, it's all about arbitrage. So if I'm getting this much, how much are they really making off of my, you know, my work? And so when you start to think about it, man, I do business coaching too, man. And a lot of the issue I see with people that are trying to transition from employee to entrepreneur, they don't have confidence in their skill sets or talents. And I always tell people, I said, if somebody's paying you for something, it could be something as simple as sweeping the floor. If somebody's paying you for that, that means you have value. So you can take that same skill and go sweep the floors for yourself. So it doesn't have to be a high tech skill. And so I just want people to understand, man, I always talk about betting on yourself. Now you got to get to that point, man. I wanted to ask you too, man, your point of enlightenment, man. When did the light bulb go off for you and say, you know what, this is easy to do this, but I'm going to get a job? Was this something, a particular instance, or was it just you always knew that in the back of your head when you even started doing it?
Yeah, for me, like, it wasn't like a lot of rappers in particular tell you, like, man, that was the path. But no, the path is like, I'm an entrepreneur. It doesn't happen like this. I didn't go, oh man, I started with dimes. I came up at, no, man, look at 2 Chainz. Like, he's been one of the most prolific trappers and rappers. It is, but that brother got a scholarship to college. He played ball. He was enlightened. He's been a brilliant thinker. The whole damn near 20 years I've known him, he's opening up his 3rd or 4th restaurant this week.
Wow.
You know, look at T.I. You know what I'm saying? The first thing T.I. did with a major chunk of money from being in music was T.I. started a construction company, rebuilding houses. This is 20 years ago now. This is prior to the West Side being gentrified in the way it is now. This is prior to the housing crash of 2007, 2008. You know what I mean? So, you know, look at Big Boy. Big Boy, them, you know, they paid a huge tax bill, you know, huge at the time, it's 10,000. He's like, no, fuck this. I ain't just rapping. Like, he went and started one of the most prolific kennels in the South, in Pitfall Kennels, that his brother runs now. Like, so I have had all about me, high and low, the good sense to know that dope wasn't taking nobody all the way. You know what I'm saying? What did take you all the way was like every other ethnic group has done.
That's right.
And what will take you is, a lot of times you have done grimy things to give a stability to your family, to give them opportunity. Joseph Kennedy. Right? Liquor, when it was prohibited. Well, it was just liquor, a little prohibition. His boys went on to become president of the United States senators. I can remember seeing James Baldwin talk, and he said, I think it was Bobby Kennedy had suggested that one day at 30, 40 years, you could see a Negro president. And he says, I never forget, Baldwin says, they just got off the boat. Yesterday. We've been here. And I was like, ooh, you know, you hear something that's an insult, you don't even understand it was an insult. So you can mature. Like he was saying, they put these people who literally have just immigrated here through Ellis Island, and these people have already ascended to the presidency, and he has the nerve to tell me the way. I was just like, ooh. So for me, I understood that drugs was not. What I did don't know is that the liquor man, you know, was only the liquor man because states had not allowed him to be in the game of liquor. So I understood it wasn't fair. So don't play in the game that ain't fair. What I understood was stability was always better long term. So when I listen to Scarface albums, I loved what Little J was saying on the front and back of the albums as much as I loved what was on the music, because this was an intelligent dude and I could tell he knew the street. So for me, it was just like working at Chuck E. Cheese. You know, I didn't have to worry about getting raided. I didn't have to worry about the police beating me up like they did in some before. You know, if somebody was up there in Cobb County needed some weed, I knew the weed man in Atlanta. I would put my little cap on it. So, you know, I just figured a more intelligent way for me was to have that stability. You know what I mean? So I never had a problem working, but I never liked working. So I knew I wasn't going to stay doing it. You know what I mean? I knew that getting a job, I was going to get paid my little $120 a week or whatever. My grandmother would take my check, give me $20 back. You know, old folks had like $20 $100. You know what I mean? So I would have already, you know, sold a couple coworkers a dub or something, you know, or some of that cheap ass weed we used to get from East Hampton and other places. So I was you know, I was like any typical teenage kid. I just figured out ways. And then, you know, it wasn't just dumb shit. It was like I cut grass with the homies and my grandpa needed help. I'd do something to earn. But I knew that a job gave me the stability that I need. I tell a lot of young men who have children early, if you had a child, don't have any more.
Right.
And immediately get a job at UPS or FedEx, somewhere you can work a 4 to 6 hour block so you don't miss whatever you're missing. And you'll get accustomed to making money. And then you can start to figure out, okay, well, I made enough money. Like, now I can start my own little business, whatever that business is. I do barbecue on the weekends. You know, I hunt and clean game meat. Like, but there are things that you can be doing. So but for me, the light bulb moment was getting a job at Chuck E. Cheese. You know, I saw my partner walk in with the Jordan 6s. I was like, "Where'd you get them?" He said, "I got a job, fool." And I was like, "Shit, I'm getting a job too."
Man, you talked about, you know, entrepreneurship, starting your business, man. How important is that for us Black folk here in the States right here? How important is us building and supporting Black-owned businesses, man?
Oh, man, look at what we have done for other communities. We have enriched Asian communities through supporting our corner stores, bodegas. We've enriched Arab American communities that have also owned gas stations, things of that nature. We have, because we stay in more depending on our, like when I first go to Tupelo, Mississippi, I was staying in motels, not hotels. Many of those were owned by East Indian brothers and sisters that were over here. And so these families were able to build wealth, and these communities were able to build wealth because they provided a service that we needed. So I think it's important that we go into business because America's always going to need service. Right. America's always going to need someone to serve their food, to take care, to make their beds. And a lot of people hear this and they withdraw from it, but you don't mind paying Asian people $100 a week to do your nails. Right. You don't mind doing it. So the question becomes, why do you mind doing feet and hands? If you paying somebody $100, somebody will pay you $100. Exactly. So what I suggest is that we start to attack the businesses that we've been enriched. And that doesn't mean loot, steal, rob, kill. That means put your business right next to them. If they have the golden Buddha, then there should be Black China right next to it. Exactly. You get what I'm saying? When Black China comes through town to do the show at the Blue Flying Lounge, Black China should order her Chinese food from Black China. You know what I mean? So, you know, that just like you have Korean barbecue took off a few years ago, you should have a Seoul Korea. What's that? Well, it's actually Black owned. It has all the Korean dishes you enjoy at all the other Korean places. And they got collard greens. You know what I'm saying? but we have to, because Koreans can fry the fuck out some chicken. For those of you may not know, I've been all around the world. Right. Koreans, boy, they get down. They got grandma worthy chicken.
That's what I was going to say. Grandma in the back.
I ain't lying. You know, so all that to say that these communities have provided. Elijah Muhammad said, "Study the white man," because he's been successful. These communities have been successful. Study them. Don't resent them. Don't get mad at them. Don't hate them. Quietly take their position. Either they're going to go up the ladder, down the ladder, go away. That's no concern of yours, but attack that. You know, attack that. And I would say, so it's important that we become entrepreneurs, but it's also important to understand all of us are not going to become Fortune 500 CEOs within our lifetime. What you can do is grow the next level. And you have to see yourself as the cornerstone of the foundation. For as much as I've accomplished, it is only because two people from the very rural South provided a certain level of stability for me. My grandmother from Tuskegee, my grandfather from Edenton. Had I not had that stability, My success might have come 20 years later. Still means I thought I'll be successful, but I made enough mistakes that had I not had stability, I couldn't recuperate from. So see yourself in that manner and value yourself, because you are the cornerstone. You're the first phase, and it starts with you. So you may not be able to get 150 unit apartment complex, but you're able to get the first 8, 10, 12 unit building that begins that legacy of apartment ownership and development in your family. But do it and then have your kids, for as much as you can right there next to your side. Like my daughter's grandmother tells me that, like, keep her heel and toe with you. And I'm learning that. That's something I'm learning as I go. I told my little girl, you're 13, but you're going to work in the store next summer. You're going to work in our original barbershop under your cousin who knows how to run our shops now. So I want to grow a much better businesswoman than a businessman than I am,
That's powerful, man, that you touched on that. We're going to hit on Greenwood in a second, but it's funny that you mentioned that with your daughter. So my daughters are 3 years apart, right? So when they were about 10 and 7, back in the day, they loved the Ugg boots, right? Everybody had to wear Uggs. And so one of the things when I told them, like, man, this is getting expensive. I said, so you guys are going to have to start making some money. And what I did, man, I was able to start they call it water ice in Philly, but it's like Italian ice in New York. Yeah. So we found a minor league baseball stadium, and I went out and I took them to the meeting. I, tried to negotiate it. We could put a stand up there, 41 games a year. Now I'm running my business, and I bought a $7,000 cold cart that would stay cold after you unplugged it for 24 hours. We got the water ice, and for 41 nights, man, that's summer. We did about $30,000. And so
that's so dope.
Yeah. And what happened was I said, all right, first thing we got to do is we got to pay back this cart, right?
Yeah.
So we took
off the top.
So they got to understand that. Then out of the money that they got, they had to put 50% away. And then the other 50% they could play around with and do whatever they wanted. The business got so crazy. The next year, the company that managed the stadium asked us to go from Philly down to DC for the DC United soccer team. And so we had to buy another car. Now, my wife may have been at one stadium. I may have been at the other, but it was teaching them, and kids learn just like you're doing, not just dad, mom telling them what to do. Come here and experience this and see how this works so you can create your own money, man. And that's something that I always taught my kids, man. You got to create your own money so you're not beholden to other people, brother. So I commend you. I commend you on that, man. I wanted to jump real quick, man, in terms of Black economics. So I know you're familiar with Dr. Claude Anderson, right?
Yeah, another Black economist. He slants to the right. He died a couple of days ago. Walter E. Williams.
Oh yeah.
Both rest in peace to him. Dr. Claude, who I know personally. Walter E. Williams, who I always wanted to interview. Unfortunately, I never got the opportunity, but these two men have made a dynamic impact on my life. But I just wanted to say rest in peace and much respect to Walter E. Williams, because he's not as known sometimes on the Democratic or liberal side, but fiercely Black, fiercely a conservative. And the one thing he said he was a segregationist about was marriage of Black man and woman. He was like, anything else, I'm a best qualified. He say, but I'm only gonna marry a Black woman. And I just always loved and respected that so much. So but he was an economist, brilliant brother like Dr. Claude as well. So we better put our arms around Dr. Claude and hug and talk to him more, because we're blessed to have him.
That man is powerful, brother, man. So because that's one of the things I was getting ready to bring up. So with what I always say at the end of the podcast, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, it's not just the podcast, the blog, and all my ecosystem around it, the books and the online academy and all that. It's about building an economic power base in the Black economy. And the economics is the driver, is the key. That, like Dr. Claude said, it controls politics, it controls media, which control the narrative, it controls, all types of things. And we got to focus on building and supporting, not just building Black-owned businesses, but supporting Black-owned businesses, because like you just said, man, the money that we spent, $1.2 trillion is crazy that goes through our hands each year, man. So I want to talk about that money and access to capital, man. And how does Greenwood Bank come into that play, man?
Well, Greenwood, man, hold on, I say, It's time to go. I'll be done in a quick second. My wife is on the other side, like,
Okay.
all right, cut the interview. Well, this is the deal. We are starting from a place where we're crippled, right? We are underserved in manners of food. We're underserved in manners of education and in terms of job opportunity. And yet and still, our people do a valiant job of fighting. And for the most part, do good and the best they can. With some of the things that are happening, we're being crippled and we're being left not only underserved, but unbanked.
Right.
At making $200 at the AutoZone was not fair, it was not right, but it is what it is. I wasn't gonna stand in a trap all day and try to risk my life and limb to support this 1-year-old baby girl I had and her brother, who was 3 years old at the time. I knew I had to get about my business and get a regular job and forget the allure of I think I can be Scarface or Nino Brown. And so I went and got a job at the AutoZone on Moreland because I knew that the same guys who did drugs fixed cars. So not only would I make my AutoZone money, hell, I might make a couple plays, you know. So I would take I'd take my $200 from AutoZone, and you know, because I had let one of my first bank account lapse. I didn't understand the concept of keeping your certain amount. I didn't understand. I didn't even. Well, I understood. I ignored it because my grandparents had taught me. I ignored all the good lessons I learned. Right. And the next thing you know, man, I got to go to the check cashing place. You know what I mean? And this didn't last long for me because I've been taught right, so I went and got right. But I'm like, I gave you all $200, but you giving me $160 back, 20%. Like you charging me to. But my baby had to eat. My baby had to have diapers. My baby had, you know what I mean? So I within 2 weeks, I had my bank account back. You know, I was, oh, this is not the move. Right. But that has become the way in our community. Andrew Young, who's been a friend and mentor of me since I was 15, since he was mayor of Atlanta, had went to India. He saw a card replace this paper money system in which people were being gouged. And he saw that card literally help poor people begin to be able to save money. And in India, if you're born in an economic caste system, usually that's where you're going to stay. It gave them an opportunity to take the extras and create industry for themselves. So, you know, one time to make this hat, you have to have a cotton, you have to have a thread. A woman may know how to make this hat, but if her check never allows her to get the materials, how does she make the hat? Well, it's just a hat to you. We can produce this anywhere, sell them at gas stations. But to her, selling 10 hats a week may dramatically affect her ability to send her child to school. Now, I relate to that because my grandmother was able to go to school because her parents owned land, because they had sharecropped, and because she was a Methodist. So she was able to go to church because the church set up the church. Wasn't no public funding. Nobody cared about any of that for her. So what I understood when Andy told me that was that we need this in our community too. And beyond needing it in our community, it can be here. Ryan Glover, who was the creator and founder, said, not only do we need to be doing that, we need to be injecting capital into businesses as well. And in injecting capital into businesses, you have creative businesses that are on the ground that will do phenomenally, but they need the people to have confidence and they need access to capital. One prime example of 2 restaurants that are here in Atlanta now are Big Dave's Philly Cheesesteaks, and there's Slutty Vegan. Pinky is exploding. Really? So you know, I don't know her business, but what I know is that sister is looked at favorably by people who like to give money to people. You get what I'm saying? Gotcha. There's not a company that I've talked to that hasn't said, man, I want to use Slutty Vegan as an example. So she got enough fervor going about her that people who like giving people money are into that. And Greenwood is into that. Greenwood is into saying, hey, we want to identify businesses that can explode and that might be led or started by creatives, and we want to help. Greenwood says that if you get paid on a Friday and your rent is due Wednesday, we'll get you that money 2 days early. So that's not a worry of yours. So your credit stays good. So when it's time to buy a home, you don't have the one scar on your credit with the 2-day late rental that'll prevent you from getting your first home, which is usually the first acquisition of wealth in this country to be passed down. So, you know, Greenwood is needed. It is a service going back to Walt E. Williams and his fierce defense of capitalism. He said, you know, in terms of capitalism before that, there was looting, there was rioting, there was taking. And although not perfect, at least capitalism allows you to profit from providing goods and services.
Right.
And we have an opportunity in this country to provide goods and services, and these products and the services we provide will help us to stay not only afloat, but to stay growing toward what we deserve. Because I don't know oftentimes if we're going to get what we deserve in this country. We deserve reparations. I don't know if we're going to get it. But what I do have in this country is an opportunity to participate in capitalism in a way that is fair and that is just and that's for my community. But we got to do like Marcus Garvey said, be black, buy black, think black, and everything else take care of itself. You know, people say, well, what's going to happen to the gas stations if we only go to black gas stations? Well, I'll assume they go out of business and we buy them. Right. So, you know, that's what I like. That's what I'd like to happen. And for people that say that, well, Mike, why does race or ethnicity play into it? Is the only reason you bank at Bank of America is because a strong group and brave group of Italian immigrants formed the Bank of Italy.
Exactly.
Which became the Bank of America. But they were fierce and strong enough and loyal to themselves and their community that they understood the need for the bankability. So there's a need for it. And Greenwood is not just for Black people.
Right.
It is for Latin people, white people, Asian people, big biz, small biz. It is a banking institution for all. But first and foremost, Black people, I need you to understand that our dollars have to be organized, and Greenwood is an amazing way to organize.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, we definitely got to support that, man, because access to capital, like you said, that's the leverage we need to start building and expanding our businesses. And a lot of times we end up at, you know, people doing payday loans, people for businesses, merchant cash advances, which a lot of times you can't even pay off with your business. Yep. So that's definitely needed. Man, I know your wife was calling, man. You got to get ready to go.
I got to go.
All right. That was an amazing interview with Killer Mike. There was so many gems I want to talk about. But before we get to the last quarter of the show, I just want to share all my social media contact information and my resource links. So at the top of the show, I mentioned my new book is out, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses. You can go to anewblackwallstreet.com, pick yourself up a copy, print version $14.95, digital version $9.95. Now, if you need additional assistance building your successful, sustainable e-commerce business, my flagship program goes along with the book, and it's called Brand Builder Academy Elite, BBAelite.com. Now, it's a 14-week program that takes you from point A to point Z in building and developing a successful e-commerce business. And it doesn't matter if you're selling digital products or physical products. So go to BBAelite.com. Use the coupon code BBAElite100, and that takes $100 off the price, so it's only $97. BBAElite.com, and use the coupon code BBAElite100. Also, I mentioned 2 platforms I created to help circulate black dollars in the worldwide black economy. The first one is BeSmartByBlack.com. That's BeSmartByBlack.com. So if you are a black product producer and you're looking to sell your products to black consumers worldwide, upload your product information, and it is free. And now you can connect with black consumers who want to buy your products worldwide. Also, if you are a freelancer, if you do anything on Fiverr.com or Freelancer.com, my platform, Hire Black Freelancers, is for you. HIRE blackfreelancers.com is for you. Once again, it is free also. Upload your content, and now you can connect with black consumers and black business owners that want to hire black freelancers. So that's hireblackfreelancers.com. Also, I mentioned my training class coming up on Wednesday. It's 2 days away if you're watching this on Monday. Coming up Wednesday, January 13th, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just go to milliondollarnewsletter.com. Check out the information if it's for you. I look forward to seeing you in the training. milliondollarnewsletter.com. Also, I know this is a mouthful, guys. Also, don't forget Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Academy. That is an online learning portal where I have all my courses, trainings, and learning materials. So you can go to bebacademy.com and enroll in the academy, bebacademy.com. Also, I want to let you guys know that, once again, it's a mouthful, and I ain't even finished yet. So you can go to bebconnect.com, bebconnect.com. All the information I just talked about is on that page on my website. Now, social media contacts real quick. Anything long, hit me on my email, jjones@blackentrepreneurblueprint.com, JAYJONES@blackentrepreneurblueprint.com. Facebook, go to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Twitter, jjones001, JAYJONES. Instagram, jjones for real, JAYJONES, the number 4, REAL. YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can obviously watch this interview with Killer Mike on the YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and type in Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Hit the like and subscribe button. I have additional content on YouTube that is not on the podcast. And yes, the podcast does come out on YouTube, but there's additional content on there too. Connect with me via LinkedIn. Just go search for J Jones Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. And also, if you are on the new Clubhouse app, make sure you get at me. My contact is at @IamJJones. At @IamJJones. Make sure you connect with me on Clubhouse. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the takeaways from today's show, man. There was so many of them. One of the things that I really thought was interesting when Mike was talking about his upbringing and the foundation that his grandparents gave him. So he understood what he was supposed to do. But a lot of times as we grow up, we don't necessarily follow the path that we know we're supposed to follow. We may veer off a little to the left or to the right. But he came back and he understood when he had those temptations out in the street that he said this wasn't the way to make long money. You know, the light bulb went off. There was an epiphany. Yeah, I can make some money here and there, but that's not the long game. You know, if I stay doing what I'm doing, it's not going to end up good. And one of the things that really struck me was that regardless of what was happening, that foundation that he had kept him strong and steady. So as parents, or, you know, if you don't have kids yet or whatever, make sure you try to lay that foundation so your kids will grow up and they understand, yeah, you're going to make mistakes, but they know what the path is to follow. Another thing that we talked about, and I've never heard Mike talk about this on any of the other interviews, when I was talking about his wife and his marriage and his partnership. And I always talk about being equally yoked. And one of the things that he said about equally yoked, it doesn't mean money, you know, $90,000 and you make $90,000. It talks about being balanced. You're not competing with each other. You're working as a unit, as a team. And that's what equally yoked means. People understand what their position is in this team. Some people have this, you know, responsibility. Other people have that. And then sometimes you have shared responsibilities. That was something that stuck out to me also. I'm just looking over a couple of notes here. Mike also, and he talks about this all the time, talked about the importance of entrepreneurship. And instead of getting mad at the other ethnicities that come in our community and suck up all the resources, you know, he was talking about, yeah, start businesses just like this. So he talked about the Chinese restaurant. He used that as an example. Go open one right next to him. You got the nail salon. Go open a nail salon right next to him. He said, don't get mad at them. Study them. Understand what they're doing. Because once again, the only fault, the people we can blame is us. So we're letting other ethnicities come into our neighborhoods and extract all the resources. And when they extract those resources, they're not putting it back in the community. They're taking it out of our community, sucking that dry, and then putting those resources wherever they live. So once again, that's why I always talk about the importance of building and supporting Black-owned businesses. And those were just some of the takeaways that I wanted to talk to you guys about with this interview. Also, don't forget, make sure you go to the Greenwood Bank, sign up, and start supporting that bank. We need access to capital, family. Access to capital. In addition to building and supporting Black-owned businesses, if we don't have that access to capital, nothing's going to happen. Because many of us need that capital to help grow and scale our businesses. It's one thing, you know, to be a one-man shop, one-woman shop. But if you want to grow and scale and give employment opportunities to our people in our community, we need to have access to capital to help us do that. That capital is going to help us leverage and continue to build businesses. Now, I say this each and every week, and I say it from the bottom of my heart, guys. I love and appreciate the BEB family because you guys have been rocking with me for 6+ years, 330+ episodes. And I just ask you to please continue to share my, social media information, the links, share information about the podcast and also the blog. And as I always say each and every week, it's not a blog or just a podcast. It's a movement. It's about building an economic power base in the Black community. If you see the shirt what I'm wearing right now, say there's no revolution without economics. That's where it starts, family. It starts with building an economic power base in the Black community. You have the economic power base. Now you can affect other factors of our livelihoods. For example, politics. It's a pay-to-play game. We can affect media, the narrative that's depicted of us, education. How are our schools? Do our schools have the latest equipment? Do our children have the latest books? So it all starts with building an economic power base in the Black community. And that starts with building and supporting Black-owned businesses. Love you guys. See you same time next week. Peace.